Hey, if you're watching this video, that means you're probably looking to see what actually made Amazon so darn successful. Now, Amazon's one of the biggest countries in the world, and I believe it was formed based on one principle that actually helped them form and make sure that they kept growing to the level that they're at. And the principle that I learned this past weekend at the business conference that I was at was all about love your customer and not your product. So a lot of people actually get into business because they fall in love with the product. They fall in love with the thing that they want because they're trying to solve a problem that maybe that they actually had. And they wind up in the right way because they start thinking, whoa, if I have a problem, that means other people probably have the same problem that I'm dealing with. And that means that there's probably an audience out there. So in that case, you start off with loving your audience and loving your actual customer simply because you are that customer and you love yourself for it and you're trying to solve that issue. But many actual people get into the weeds of saying, no, I love the actual product. So one of the things that I've learned from Amazon and Mr. Jeff Bezos himself when I watched different videos about him was that he was always chasing the customer satisfaction. And understanding that his job was to love the customer and not necessarily the product actually forced him to actually go in to Amazon and kept updating and making sure that he fully understood what the customer wanted. Because once you truly understand what the customer wants and what the customer loves, now you're able to actually fulfill all their needs and you're able to tie them in to the world that you want and actually make them and make your products and your business part of their everyday lifestyle. When you just think about Amazon, right, he fully understands that his job is to try to fall in love with the customer as much as possible, but at the same time understanding that you can't make everybody happy and the customer will never be satisfied. The more you give, the more they're going to want, and that's just human nature. So you can't fight that. But when you really think about what he's done, right, so it's all about making sure that everything that the customer wants is super, super convenient. And that's what the customer is all about. That's when Prime was invented, simply because how do we make things more convenient? Are people willing to pay for it, right? Now, on the other side of the world, for anybody who's remembers Nokia cell phones, and this is what a Nokia cell phone looked like. Now most people have iPhones and all that stuff as well. What actually wound up happening was Nokia was actually an Asian company, and they were actually one of the top cell phone companies in the world at one time when cell phones started coming out. That company was run by engineers, and their influence behind it was they fell in love with the product. Simply completely different than falling in love with the customer. So what actually happened with that company, they wound up focusing on the cell phone to try to make it as best as possible. And every year there was brand new features on it, and it actually wound up getting more and more complicated just to work the phone. But it was designed for engineers because that's who was making it, right? So what wound up happening was that Nokia actually started having dip in sales. So their sales started to drop even though that their phones kept getting better in their eyes. So they were thinking, well, what's happening? Why is our company dropping? Why are our sales dropping off? Even though we know that our phones are the best and we have the best product out there. So what they wound up doing, which was very smart, the CEO of the company decided to take 5 different individuals and spread them out throughout the world, and actually in different what they call trend-setting markets, so like New York, California, Miami, different parts of Europe and that kind of thing. And their job was just to stay there for 3 months and just interact with people, right? They had no other job but with the understanding of saying, what does a customer actually want? And this was all going to saying, okay, what does the customer want? Fall in love with the customer and satisfying their needs. And after those 3 months were done, all 5 of them came back to headquarters and they had a meeting. And they were all in different parts of the world. They didn't communicate with each other in those 3 months. And when they came back to this meeting, they all agreed on the same exact thing. There was one major update that everybody agreed on that we knew if we made this update, everything would move forward, and that was the invention of color. That's right. So now after these guys came back, all I wound up doing was keeping the same Nokia phones, but now they understood that some people want green ones, some people want orange ones, some people want red ones, because all the phones back then were all the same color. And as soon as they made that one little tweak, which probably cost them near nothing to actually make that update, their sales went right through the roof again, and they kept growing the company that way, right? So those are simple examples of how to fall in love with your customer and really see what they want. Don't just design the product that you want and fall in love with that product, because at the end of the day, if the customers aren't buying, you ain't going to have a business. And it doesn't matter how good or how powerful your product actually is, If it's too complicated for the customers to actually do anything about it, they're probably not going to like it. So as you are running the business, take that lesson and making sure that you're falling in love with the customer. Really understand that customer. You should understand the customer's fears, understand the customer's desires, understand the way the customer talks. Because the better you do that, the better it's going to be when it comes to your messaging with them, when it comes to your sales process, when it comes to actually delivering the product, and always having constant feedback with your ideal client. Because if you do that, no matter what happens in the recession, no matter what happens in the economy, those ideal clients will always stay with you because you're fulfilling all of their needs, whether the economy is high or whether the economy is low. So if you want to make sure that you have a sustained business for the long term, make sure that you are focusing on falling in love with your customer and understanding everything that you have to know about them and how to serve them together. In other videos, we'll talk more about this product and how Apple actually wound up doing the same exact thing, but wound up saving them from bankruptcy was this main thing here. Fall in love with the customer and seeing what they actually wanted. I'll watch the next video and you can actually find out. Thanks.